and I wish I was around for that 7th generation of consoles. The PS3, the Wii, the 360, each one as good as the next. And look, the 8th gen was great with the PS4 and the Switch in the later half, but I think the first half can be about summed up in these few clips.
That PlayStation 4 will be available at $399.
£429 in the UK.
After that, the PS4 just kept seeing sale after sale and game after game, and at least Nintendo made games for the Wii U while Xbox just sat back and said, Gears of War 4, and again, at least the Wii U could lay the groundwork for the Switch in the future, while Xbox just sat back and said, Halo 5. The point is, the 8th generation was pretty inconsistent. Like, Xbox might have released the occasional good or decent game every now and then, but that wasn't the story with the 7th generation. Each one of the big three sold and performed really well, with game after game after game after game. The Wii, PS3 and 360 are all 7th, 8th and 9th on the best-selling consoles of all time. Perfectly. We will never see that again. Anyway, for this video I figured we'd go by console, so let's start with the Wii. The Wii sold a total of 101.63 million units before Nintendo, well, pulled it off the shelves. And that's for a good reason. However, making the Wii for Nintendo was a massive risk. I mean, look at this thing, it's underpowered compared to the 360 and the PS3. They turned your regular controller into what feels like a TV remote, and any game that didn't require you to swing your controller like a tennis racket had you use a completely separate accessory so you can move around properly in 3D games. But that's what made the Wii so unique. And that's also what made it appeal to loads of casual people. A TV remote is such a recognisable thing for the average person. The box is a nice blend of white and grey. Every section on the menu is called a channel. The risk for Nintendo was not having any of the people who regularly play games buy the Wii. But that's not the Wii's mission. The Wii set out to get all the family in one room and play some Wii Sports. You can see it in the marketing. And all of that shows, but of course, the Wii wouldn't sell near as well as it did if it didn't have good games. I'm sure that if you were to play the Wii right now, you would still get a really good time out of Mario Kart Wii, Wii Sports, Smash Bros. Brawl. And when you look at it like that, it's no surprise that the Wii sold this well. While the Wii and Nintendo stepped out of the console wars entirely by bringing a whole new set of people into gaming, but on the other side, Sony and Microsoft decide to make the most powerful console possible, with the main selling point being the games. The Xbox 360 had a year's head start over all the competition by releasing in 2005, while the rest of them released in 2006. Xbox knew all the work that it would take to make a brand as big as PlayStation's, so they knew what they were doing by releasing their console a year early and getting games out like Saints Row and Gears of War all before the PS3 released. Luckily for Xbox, Sony completely fumbled the PS3's release. The main factor in this being that Sony thought they could get away with any price because, you know, they made the PS2, but for some reason Sony decided to make the PS3 with this whole custom cell processor stuff, and it made it really pricey, causing a very bad release. Seeing this, Xbox decided to drop some of the greatest games of the generation. Mass Effect, Gears of War 2, Halo 3, they were coming out strong. Xbox also got games like BioShock on the Xbox 360 before they came out on the PS3. Has to be noted as well, third-party developers were also making a massive effort at this time. Games like Modern Warfare, Crysis, Oblivion. 360s were selling well, and Sony were starting to realise that they couldn't get away with releasing an overpriced console just because they made the PS2. However, everything would come to a halt as Microsoft were starting to realise a massive problem with 360s, the famous Red Ring of Death. If Microsoft hadn't done anything in this situation, and just so you know, this whole thing costed them $1 billion+, Xbox as a brand would probably be dead, which would have meant no Xbox One, which is fine by me. Okay, maybe I'm being a little harsh on the Xbox One, but this also would have meant no Game Pass, which I actually like the idea of a Game Pass type subscription, which I know a lot of people would disagree with. However, in the early 2010s, Xbox did start to slow down a bit. You could say that the 2010s were off to a good start for Xbox, with the Kinect being the fastest selling consumer electronic of all time.
So, you've come back for more, Ian.
Yep, let's do it.
This should be good. Let's begin.
The whole idea behind the Kinect was Xbox basically seeing the success of the Wii and its motion controls and trying to make that into its own unique idea, and having the whole marketing message being you as the controller, and it seemed to work. While the 360 did get games like Halo Reach in the 2010s, which kept main first-party support ticking along, unfortunately most of Xbox's focus, and a lot of their focus for their E3 conferences, would be on Kinect. Now, my household did have a Kinect when I was younger, and we did use it from time to time. I have to say it was a bit of fun, but that doesn't change the fact that the camera controls were like really bad.
Players' whole bodies to work with some of the most advanced motion detection technology around. But does it actually work? Sort of. The biggest problem with Kinect. It's super sensitive and requires an elaborate calibration process. In order to use it, you have to clear a pretty large space in your room, adjust the lighting, and stand within a specific viewing area as it takes you through the process step by step.
The main problem with Kinect is that it controlled horribly, as I said, which kind of meant that people's motivation to buy games for it weren't exactly at an all-time high. Xbox just saw the sales of the Kinect and started wasting loads of high-quality studios on making Kinect games. My whole point there was that Kinect phase that Xbox went through in the 2010s with Don Matrick would lead to the Xbox One's reveal, and I'm sure we all know how that went. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the 360 had one of the greatest lineup of games that we'll ever see. While the early 2010s may have not been the greatest time for the 360, it was the perfect chance for its competitor to take its place. As I said, the PS3 got off to an extremely rough start with the worst reveal in gaming history, behind the Xbox One of course. It genuinely seemed like Sony thought they could beat all the competition by a landslide again just because they did in the last gen, no matter what state they released the PS3 in. Not only did it release insanely overpriced, but for the first year there was almost no super memorable or groundbreaking exclusive games, unlike the Xbox 360, but the main thing keeping the PS3 afloat was the exclusive games coming out from time to time, but mainly the really good third-party games. The problem was these third-party games were also releasing on the 360, so the sales gap was starting to widen. It took PlayStation 3 whole years to finally say, we're actually losing this generation to Microsoft. So out of nowhere in 2009, Microsoft say, Halo Wars. PlayStation come out with Uncharted 2, Infamous, Killzone 2, Demon's Souls. They did a whole rebrand of the PS3 and made a smaller, slimmer, cheaper PS3. They also started switching up the advertising style, which was much needed because before this the ads were really creepy, and also for some reason used the Spider-Man IP font from the 2000s to try and sell consoles. It obviously didn't work. The second Xbox started going through their Kinect phase, PlayStation just started bringing out everything they had. Metal Gear Solid 4, God of War 3, Uncharted 3, The Last of Us. 2009 and onward was mainly the time when it seemed like lots of people were starting to upgrade and buy these consoles. This was also the time when PS3 was coming out with the better games, and that paired with their past reputation of consoles, good rebranding and good advertising, ended in PlayStation overtaking the 360. Of course, all while the Wii was outselling both of them. From the Wii bringing more people into gaming than ever, to the Xbox 360's lineup of games, to the PS3's comeback. I really hope we do get a generation like the 7th again. Which unfortunately is looking unlikely, mainly because of long development cycles, budgets, and most AAA studios doing some pretty bad business practices. And as I'm recording this, the Xbox 360 servers are shutting down in a few days. But of course, that doesn't mean that these games aren't gone forever. There's still things like emulation, and if you own an Xbox One or a Series S or X, you can still play these games through backwards compatibility. But I think that just about concludes my first ever YouTube video. If you want to see more like this, subscribe, and if you liked the video, well, you know what to do.